Hello and welcome to the Retire Once Show, the show designed to help you get to retirement, but most importantly, stay retired. I'm your host, Johnathan Rankin. I'm the founder and CEO of Theorem Wealth Management, and I'm joined today, as always, by my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Melissa Rankin. Thank you for joining us.
We are so happy for you to be here. We've got a great episode for you today. I mean, if you thought that Top Gun was good, just wait till we dig into today.
We've also not seen Top Gun yet, but
It is true. So hopefully it's as good as everybody makes out to be, and hopefully this is as good as I just made it out to be as well. So
it will be, but on both fronts.
So right now, what we want to talk about today is, with everything going on in the markets and the economy, I always feel like during periods of uncertainty, people always make dramatic changes.
Knee-jerk reactions, if you will. And
so today, what we want to talk about are the do's and don'ts of retirement planning.
Because there are quite a few.
So, and in fact, I actually think we need to say that and use it. The do's
and don'ts
of retirement planning, just to make it that much more dramatic and fun. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Head to retireonceshow.com. You can submit a question there. You can access our retirement toolkit, and you could schedule a free retirement assessment. And so make sure you head to retireonceshow.com. We will link to that in the show description and the show notes wherever you're watching this. So let's go ahead and dive into it.
Okay, so again, thank you for joining us. And like we talked about, it's hard not to have an immediate reaction when things are going good or bad. But in this case, with your retirement, you don't want to just rush all in or rush out on either way. You don't want to do anything crazy, and you also don't want to not. I know that's a double negative, but it goes with the do's and don'ts. So our first do is set goals.
Yeah, this is really meant for people who have been saving for retirement and really have done it on autopilot. So meaning that you start at your job and you were always told, I got to put money in the 401k, I got to get this match, and I got to invest for my long-term retirement. But you get to the point where you go, well, what am I really saving for? I know I'm saving for this retirement, but if that retirement's 10, 15, even 20 or 30 years away, what does that really look like? And I know it's hard to figure out what your lifestyle is going to be in 20 years, but you got to start somewhere. And the reason why it's important now is because goals will help put all of this market volatility into perspective. It'll help give you that realization that you were saving for a purpose and not just throwing money away, is what a lot of people feel, especially during market volatility.
Especially when you see your accounts or assets go down.
Mm-hmm. You imagine if you're saving every single 2 weeks or every month into your account, and you see it go down every single time you look at the account. You go, well, what am I saving for? Well, having those goals will keep that in perspective. Setting goals will also help you understand: are you saving too little, or even if you're saving too much? Let's say you put together your retirement goal and then realize, well, I'm putting away more money than I actually need. What about some of the other things you want to do with your money? Are there children or grandchildren that you want to fund their college? Is there something else that you want to do that you can divert some of that savings to something else?
It's important to keep sight of kind of what you're doing it for. Mm-hmm. So that's why you want to have an idea, even if you don't know exactly what your future looks like you said, 20 years from now. But it's important to know kind of big picture at least, so you have some general idea, right?
Yeah, I saw a statistic that only half of Americans know how much they need to save for retirement. So half the people watching this will likely have
call us,
an idea of what they actually need to save every single month or every paycheck to get to retirement. So setting those goals is important, which leads us to the next part.
So what not to do. So we're going to balance it there. See how we do?
The do's and the don'ts.
Exactly. Don't wait to start planning.
Yeah, this is important because I know a lot of people who do what we were talking about before, which is they set it and forget it, like they're baking a chicken, and they invest on autopilot.
Which you also don't want to
forget. So they invest on autopilot for 20, 25 years, and retirement's coming up, and they go, well, now I want to start planning for it. Well, the reality is, even if retirement's 20 or 30 years away, you always want to start that planning process as early as you can, because that allows you to make changes. And I always think about the example of, I talk to people all the time who are either retired or near retirement that ask me, Johnathan, how do I save money on taxes in retirement? And I go, when are you retiring? And I say, well, in the next 6 months, or I'm already retired.
Eek.
It's too late to do anything. So the reality is you want to start as early as possible because that's where you can start being very creative in the savings, the type of accounts, the investing strategy that you're implementing. There's a lot of things you could do if you're starting that planning process early. So don't put that off because it kind of leads into the next part. It will help also establish a proper investment allocation, which during markets like we're going through right now are very important. It's got, you can think of that long-term perspective. You've got the right investment allocation because it's based on the plan that you're putting together.
Where you're at currently. It sounds crazy, but once you start contributing to a 401k, no matter where you're at in your career, that's when you need to start thinking about your retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, those should go hand in hand. I know, like you said, so many people think, oh, retirement's 20 years out and I'll worry about that later. No, if you're thinking at all, if you're putting any money away, you should be thinking more specifically about retirement because you already kind of are.
Yeah, you are, and it's just putting that to the to the forefront of your mind, at least on a routine basis. Whether that's every quarter, every 6 months, every year, at worst case, just thinking about that plan. Even if you're in your 20s or 30s and you're just starting out, you want to have an idea of where you're going. That is going to change over time, but you want to at least have a target that you're shooting for, and starting that planning process really is never a bad thing.
So that leads us into our next do establish an investment discipline.
Yeah, you see this a lot with markets like we're going through right now, where for the past couple of years we've had one sector or a few sectors leading the market, and I'm going to race to that hot new thing, and then now that's falling. I'm going to get out of that and go into something different. And
you're always trying to catch the next best thing.
It always seems like that when we go through markets like this, and it always reminds me of when everybody talks about they want to get in shape or they want to lose weight, and you hear about all these fad diets. I mean, remember Atkins, Weight Watchers, and keto, the juice cleanses.
Which, if anybody's watching, can you explain to me the difference between keto and Atkins? Because I swear keto is just Atkins rebranded.
I think you're right. I have no clue, but ultimately,
I don't know enough because I follow a discipline model, but I swear they're the same thing. So if any of our viewers or listeners know that answer, could you please let me know?
Yeah, she is very curious about that. But I feel like that's the same example of what we see in the investment market, is that it's always chasing that hot new fad, when ultimately, when you're trying to lose weight, it comes down to one thing: calories in, calories out. No matter what the diet or label the diet is, just burn more than you're actually taking in, and you're going to lose weight. Same thing with investing. It's very simple. Just basically put together a discipline that fits you. Determine the amount of risk that you're willing to take. Put together an asset allocation, fill that allocation with diversified investments, reassess, rebalance, and over time, you're going to not get sucked into the latest, craze of
the latest and greatest.
Yeah, the NFTs or the crypto coins that we've seen go to zero, things that sounded great because the news, that's all they're talking about because it's the hot new item. But ultimately, stay disciplined, create something that works for you, and going back to the last two things, fits into your plan to help you get to those long-term goals.
And I just want you guys to know, he also, whenever I say, I need to lose 5 pounds or whatever, I want you guys to know that he brings that very point up to me every time. It's calories in, calories out. You got to stay disciplined. So this is not something that he just applies here. It is in all facets of life. I just wanted everybody to know that.
Whether it's Whole30, keto, low carb,
because I've asked to try them all. And I was like, what do you think if I do this? No.
Yeah, my favorite have got to be those juice cleanses with the cayenne pepper and the lemon. Just
I've also done that.
Horrible.
We lasted for one day.
No, I lasted for one drink of one cleanse, and I said
he lasted for one drink of it.
Not doing this, and it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it comes down to one thing. Just like investments, just keep it simple and something that you can stick to. It's like with anything, but especially investing.
So in kind of the same line, our next don't, where you don't want to get sucked into fads. We hear a lot in down markets, especially, that annuities are the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a big one. Don't get sucked into annuities in down markets. This is where you start seeing the commercials about guarantees, and everybody wants to talk about protect your assets, protect what you've saved. It's the only product in the financial services industry that you can use the word guarantee associated with it.
Which in a down market, if you see your account continuing to go down, hearing guaranteed and protection, those are, I don't know, kind of jump out at your words.
They do a very good job, annuity salesmen do a very good job of selling the fear that everything's going to keep going down and this is going to protect what you have. And I'm not saying that annuities are a bad thing, because they're not, but they really fit a specific investment strategy, a specific place. And it's frustrating when I come across someone who's put all of their money into an annuity without realizing, okay, you're locked into this thing pretty much forever. Yes, you can eventually get your money out, but there's usually very high surrender fees or penalties that are associated with those. They're not meant to trade in and out of at all. So they're meant to, most of the time, give you a long life, income. And so by putting your money all into one of these things that, just to keep in mind, annuities, for everybody this is a little bit behind the scenes, annuities are the highest commissionable product allowed in the financial services industry. And I've talked to a lot of financial advisors in my career. I've never heard one brag about the newest annuity that they bought.
You mean for them personally?
For them personally. Never. I've never heard them say, I just got this new annuity. This thing's going to make me feel so great and it's going to be the best investment I've ever made. I've never heard that. So I'm not saying that they're bad. They fit a very specific strategy, a very specific need, but just because the markets are down doesn't mean you want to rush to just put your money into something that is going to tie you up for a long period of time that typically has much higher fees than you need. And when you look over a course of a bull market, they underperform there. And so it's just important to make sure, if you're going to buy an annuity, make sure you go back to that financial plan. Run your financial plan with it and without it, and look over a long period of time and make sure that that specific annuity makes sense for you. I've seen it way too many times. I saw it in 2008, 2009. I saw it when the market dipped in 2018, and then again in 2020. When the market goes down, especially double digits and in the 20s, and that bear market starts coming around, the amount of annuities that people want to buy at that time are typically pretty high at that point.
Because again, you hear the words protection, guarantee, and like we said, they're not a bad thing. It's just you got to make sure it's the right one and the right fit for you. Just again, no knee-jerk reactions.
If you're ever thinking about putting all of your money into one investment vehicle, just stop for 1 second.
Take a breath.
Just stop and think: is all of my money in this one strategy, this one investment? Is that the right thing? And hopefully you start thinking about that and bring it back to your financial plan.
So the next this is a good one. This is good all the time. Work on eliminating debt.
Yeah, work on eliminating debt, but really work on eliminating the right debt.
What is the right debt?
So the right debt, mainly credit cards, and especially anything that's got a higher interest rate than historical investment returns. So if you're locked into a 2.5% or 3% mortgage, you likely are going to be able to outperform that over a long period of time by investing. Whereas if you've got a interest rate on a credit card that's 18 or 19%, then it's going to be hard to outperform that year over year. So you want to tackle that credit card debt. And especially now that we're in a rising interest rate environment, a lot of those consumer debts that's non-mortgage debt typically have adjustable rates to them, so they can reset at higher rates. So you just want to tackle that stuff as soon as you can. But that it is important to think about the right debt, not just if you've got low interest debt, maybe that might be appropriate to continue to have, because if your investments outperform that over a long period of time, it might be beneficial.
But it still makes sense to always kind of evaluate where you're at. And credit cards, on that point, a lot of them start off with 0% or, a very low rate. And a lot of people don't realize when that kicks into a higher rate or if it actually does at some point. So again, just work on eliminating debt that you have, but always evaluate kind of where you're at with credit card rates and mortgage rates, things like that. You just want to keep all that in the forefront of your mind. So that leads us to our next don't. Don't stop retirement savings to pay off said debt.
Yeah, we talked about that in our last episode. Stopping your 401k contributions or stopping your savings for any reason, but just to pay off debt. Yeah, it's important to pay off debt, but if it causes you to miss out on your employer match in your 401k, maybe that's not worth it. I think the only time that it's going to make sense to stop contributing to your 401k to pay off debt is if you have so much debt that the interest every single month is higher than what you're getting in that employer match. If that's the case, yes, you want to have an aggressive payoff strategy.
Absolutely. Get that gone.
Down,
yeah, immediately.
and then go back to saving. But it's really hard to stay disciplined with savings when you're starting and you're stopping, because
we talked about that last episode. It's kind of like a mindset. It once you stop, you're so less likely. What was your
less likely to restart? But you're also, the thing is, you'll always find something to do with that money.
Oh, right.
If you decide to stop and now your paycheck goes up by a couple $100 every 2 weeks, well, now I can go get that thing that I wanted, or I can go on that trip that we wanted. And you can always find something to spend that money on, as opposed to just putting it away, staying disciplined, and thinking about it as it's already out of your paycheck. It's not in your bank account. So unless you have a tremendous amount of debt where the interest is much higher than what you're getting in that employer match, then I think stay disciplined to that savings.
Okay. So with that, our next do. Constantly update your retirement plan with ongoing stress tests. We have talked about this before, but we want to reiterate the very, very important parts of it.
Yeah. I mean, I always like to say that retirement planning is about gaining confidence that you can go out on your own with no salary and live off of your savings. In a very cheesy way, you can think of retirement as you're jumping off a building and your retirement savings is the net that's going to catch you.
It's your safety net. It's your free fall.
And by updating your plan, this is your way of making sure that throughout market cycles, and this is the important part, when the market's at all-time highs, yeah, it's great to put together a plan and make sure that you're on track, but it's also equally, if not more important, to make sure that you're still on track when the market's going through a bear market like we're seeing. Because that's going to give you the idea of, okay, well, I knew I was good in an up market. What about a not so good market? That's going to help provide some of that confidence that you'd like to have going into retirement. And then we always talk about stress testing, but there are always new scenarios that you can think of. And markets like this present scenarios like that. Whether it's stagflation that we start hearing about, maybe inflation is a lot higher than normal moving forward. If we go through a period where, let's say, the market doesn't go up for, a year or two, or, whatever that looks like, throwing scenarios into your retirement plan and just making sure that you're stress testing that your goals are okay. It is important to do this, especially the closer you get to retirement, because of the fact that you don't have the time like you did when you were in your 30s or 40s or even 50s. If retirement's in the next couple of years or even later this year, you really want to make sure that you're updating that plan and putting together as many stress tests before you get that last paycheck from your employer.
So consistency and frequently
there
on
you
those.
Go. That's it.
So that leads us to our next don't.
And our last one.
Oh, good. The don'ts for some reason just have they sound like a negative, like, don't you do that. I don't know. I just picture.
Should we not be in the contraction business? Should we just say do not?
No, I still like don't.
The do nots.
Okay, our last do not. Do not think retirement planning and investing is a steady line.
No, as we could see, you have to be prepared to make changes. You have to understand that markets are going to go up and they're going to go down. If all investing was just making money, you probably wouldn't make that much money. There's a risk premium that we take, and that's why markets go through what they're going through right now, but that's also why they deliver performance over a long period of time. So just knowing that you have to be flexible. Life's going to throw a bunch of things at you. At some point you may have health issues or want to help out family, or something's going to come up that you got to realize. I've never met anybody who's retired and every single year they're living off the exact same amount and adjusting that for a small bit of inflation. And then, every single year they're getting that small adjustment and it's a static line. I've never seen that. It's always, there are years where you spend more. There's ebbs and flows. Yeah, there are years where you spend less. It's just, you have to be prepared that it's going to be, it's not going to be steady. It's going to be messy sometimes, and that's life. Okay. And so, yeah. So.
It makes sense. I mean, it's important to keep in mind that, yes, you can plan for so many contingencies, but unless you're actually going back to the stress testing and being disciplined and things like that, it's important to keep your life on track at kind of all times, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's like someone telling us, raising kids is easy. It's simple.
Said no one ever.
It's like the same thing. Retirement planning and investing is easy and simple, and it's one steady straight line. No, just like kids, they don't just go from birth to 18 and leave the house like it's nothing. And your investments don't go from... I
really wish that were the case.
Yeah, they don't go from zero to $1 million overnight or over the course of 20 or 30 years without some fluctuation. So those are the retirement planning do's and don'ts. Let's go through all of them just to summarize it for everybody. So go ahead.
So our first one, the do, make sure you're setting your goals. That's very important because like we talked about, even if it's 20 years out or whatever, always be setting a goal. Do not wait to start planning. Plan as soon as possible. The second you're thinking about savings, I mean, you're already kind of preparing. You're preparing for something. So let it be your retirement. And 3, do establish an investment discipline. I mean, this is something you're going to probably hear from us in every episode in some way.
If this is 15, so when we're on episode 1500, you're still hear the same thing and go, I thought I heard that in episode 15. And if you have that type of recall, you've got a really good memory.
And don't get sucked into annuities in a down market. I mean, they can be good, but again, always evaluate your personal situation. Don't get roped into words like guaranteed and protection. Do work on eliminating debt. That's something that's important all the time anyway. Do not stop contributing to your retirement accounts to pay off your debt. Kind of goes hand in hand with the one before that. Do constantly update your retirement plan with the ongoing stress test. Again, something we reiterate all the time. Don't think about retirement planning as a steady line. Yeah. Nothing about this is a very straight line. We wish it were, but it's not.
It would make life so much easier if it was, but it's not. And if you have questions or wonder where you stand in terms of your retirement goals, especially now in this market, or let's say you're considering throwing all of your money into an annuity because you heard they're the greatest thing ever, please reach out. We're going to put a link in the show notes below to go ahead and schedule a retirement assessment with us. We'll be happy to make sure we're running all of this through your specific plan, especially the annuity part, because I want to be able to show you, whether or not it makes sense for you. But that's one thing we do offer is a free retirement assessment. So we're going to link to that to go and schedule that.
So before we get out of here, what do we want people to do?
Oh boy, she just switched up on me. We want people to subscribe. We want you to share it. Yeah, that little arrow there, share it with all of your friends, families, neighbors. Even if someone is just walking their dog along the street, yell at them. Hello. Have you heard of the Retire Once show? I think it's something you should listen to. Let me share it to you. And then you hit the little arrow, send it to them so they can walk their dog and learn about all of the retirement do's
and don'ts
of retirement planning. With that, I'm Johnathan Rankin.
And I'm Melissa Rankin. Thank you so much for joining us.